I'm Mike Fratto, editor of Network Computing. I'm here at Interop Las Vegas with Alan Leinwan, CTO of Infrastructure for Zynga. Alan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me.
So my first question is, how did you guys derive better economics by pulling your applications back from the public cloud into a private cloud?
Sure. I mean, we spent a lot of time architecting our ZCloud infrastructure to be a better vehicle for Zynga on the cloud. We actually like to talk about cloud computing in two different models. We talk about the public cloud as being useful for lots of generic workloads, lots of applications, lots of different types of compute that can happen in the public cloud, and it scales very well for that. We like to call the public cloud the four-door sedan. I own a four-door sedan, and it's useful for a lot of things. I drive around town with it, I take my kids on vacation with it. We do all sorts of fun stuff. The private cloud is actually, and ZCloud specifically, was tuned really for social games. We like to think of that as a race car for social games. Okay. And what we ended up doing is we ended up tuning our infrastructure really to match the needs of the workload. What that means is, on the public cloud, we saw instances where we saw network bottlenecks and network traffic, and because they're building something that works for lots of different workloads. We tried to make the private cloud have sort of zero oversubscription and make sure that our players could always get into the private cloud and get very fast response times. In the public cloud, we saw limitations on certain people's public cloud on storage IOPS and a way we could drive storage in a way that made sense for our business. On the private cloud, we actually put direct attached storage in our servers. We did some architectures to make sure that the storage was architected across the data centers in a way that gave us very, very high IOPS. And lastly, one of the key things that we did is we looked at the memory footprint that was available in the public cloud, and we saw how our programs and our tools and our services use that memory. And we built memory footprint in ZCloud that actually is better utilized. You know, in the public cloud, if you have a virtual machine that has 64 gigs of memory and you needed to go to 72, you can't add DIMMs. You know, but on the private cloud, we said, and we looked at our workload and said, you know, our workload requires about this much memory, so we're going to build servers to match that. And all these little turns in the knob really ended up with the fact that for every 3 servers we had on the public cloud, we only needed 1 on the private cloud. So we ended up with more capacity, more flexibility, and better economics that way as well.
And that was just all driven just by optimizing your application for the workload?
Well, it was optimizing the application, and 2, really understanding what the application was doing. It was really important to watch the threads in PHP, to look at the way the heap is utilized, look at the way, if there's packets on the wire and the traffic is increasing, understand why. You know, just because you see more players might not mean the fact that you'd see more network traffic. So we dug into that and figured out what was really going on. And all those little turns, all those little twists of the screwdriver really just made things work a little better.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's no joke when you guys say the infrastructure really is the thing that drives your business.
That's right, it's the core of our business, yeah.
So given that, what keeps you up at night?
Well, what keeps me up at night? Well, moments like, you know, Alec Baldwin getting thrown off a plane and having huge infrastructure demands does keep us up at night. And probably the one core thing that we spend a lot of time thinking about is, 1, making games people love to play, but 2, making sure we have the capacity to serve that. I don't want the guys who are making new features in Words with Friends and Farmville and Castleville to think, wow, when I launch this feature, is the game going to roll over and die? I just want them to think, how do I make this feature fun? And then I want to make sure the infrastructure has the capacity to do that. And that takes a lot of practice, it takes a lot of muscle memory in terms of capacity planning, but sometimes you don't know when that event's going to happen, and that sometimes keeps me up at night.
Yeah, I can imagine. So in your role as CTO of Infrastructure for Zynga, you must see some really cool things. What's the coolest thing that you can talk about that you've seen recently?
Well, you know, obviously we do a lot with the cloud. We do a lot with the public cloud and the private cloud. And you know, I've seen a bunch of companies that are pretty intriguing. What they're doing is they're taking cloud orchestration software and they're packaging them into appliances and built to suit sort of pieces of infrastructure. This is something that's up and coming that we're keeping our eye on. So imagine that when we tried to build ZCloud, we took racks of servers and top-of-rack switches and load balancers, and we orchestrated in a way for ZCloud. But there's a bunch of startups in the Valley that actually are producing appliances. You stick in the top of rack, it discovers what's in the rack, it automatically turns it into the cloud, it's got the API right there, similar to Amazon's. That's pretty intriguing, and we think that there might be a nice future there for those companies.
And during your keynote, you had talked about how many servers you were bringing up all the time.
Yeah.
You know, and you could do it within 24 hours.
That's right.
That would cut off a huge chunk of time just being able to automate that whole process.
Yeah, I mean, we have automated the process to the point where we can bring up 1,000 servers in 24 hours, and we've done it a lot. And that's from cold and cardboard to running games. But we had to innovate around that. We had to sort of build that process and that procedure up. We had to figure out how to take those servers and boot them up and optimize boot times and make sure the games got loaded. But if we could literally put a rack of servers in or a rack of network infrastructure and have a device discover that and sort of produce the cloud that was there as opposed to us producing the cloud we wanted, yeah, that might definitely save us some time.
Wow, that is so cool.
It is neat stuff.
Alan, thanks for your time.
I appreciate it, Mike.